Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Well, on one thing, I agree with Paul. You see, and I have said it. I've said it on this your program many times and everywhere I've been. That for the most part, every election is a referendum on the incumbent. When voters come to a conclusion that the incumbent has done well, it doesn't matter what campaign you wage or which candidate you bring. That is why I am amused at the way that the NPP is tickling itself and laughing and thinking that merely because they hold presidential primaries 3 years to elections, they will have some advantage over the incumbent. It won't happen. It doesn't matter what they do. When President Mahama performs well, and the people of Ghana accept that he has, the NDC will be head and shoulders above anything that the NPP presents in the elections. And that is how it has always been, at least since 1992, when I have been observing elections. Every single election held in Ghana has been decided on account of the views of the people on the performance of the government, especially regarding the economy and nothing more. We speak about corruption. It's an important matter. But since I became politically active, I have sat in presentations of political research that the NDC and other third parties have conducted. Every one of them has never had corruption as the topmost item that decides people's voting patterns. It is always the economy. Even in 2016, in fact, 2012, when Akufo-Addo and the NPP made a lot of noise about education, the dominant thing for that election was free SHS, you remember? But the economy held sway because people assessed their living conditions and accepted that the government of the day had stabilized the economy and that the economy was in much better shape than they inherited. This was a period when the economy had grown in excess of 14% in 2011. Inflation had remained a single digit for 3 years and counting, and things were stable. So no matter how much noise Akufo-Addo made about free SHS, people still voted for the economy. It was the same in 2016. Despite all, and I was at the forefront of government communication. And you saw the effort that we put into marketing what President Mahama had done. Every child in Ghana could rattle off what President Mahama had done in every sector. But the people of Ghana at the time didn't think it was sufficient, especially regarding the economy. So they gave Akufo-Addo the chance. He came in and put up a performance that was absolutely atrocious, especially regarding the economy. So there was no way the people of Ghana were going to listen to anything they said. You know, sometimes communication is overrated. That's why I gave you an analogy of Bob Marley's lyrics. He who feels it knows it. You see, we politicians, all this hoopla we engage in, all the campaigns we do, lead to the creation of a certain content that we present to the electorate. The electorate then assesses it and weighs it against their present circumstance and make a determination. If you have done well in the economy, forget about the figures that you recite. It will reflect in the lives of the people, so they will see. Why? When you took people's money, 1.3 million bondholders, when you took their money and said you were not going to pay them interest and principals and that you were going to shave off significant portions of those, what amount of PR is going to countermand that? The man has lent you money. He expects that you pay him interest at an agreed time. And then when the principal is due, you pay. You don't do that. How can you convince him that you've done well for him as far as the economy is concerned? When the businessman goes to the Forest Bureau, and a few months before then, he needed 6 cedis to purchase $1. And today, you ask him to bring 17 cedis. What kind of PR are you going to run? That will convince him otherwise. So when Paul and some in the NPP say that Akufo-Addo did this, Akufo-Addo did that, and that the performance in 2020 was good, but the performance in 2024 was bad, and so when we are assessing him, we should look at only the 2020 performance. I don't know what they are talking about. Look, they gave you 8 years. Within that period, they expected significant performance. In fact, in 2020, I have always held the view that if you look at the outcome of the elections, Ghanaians protested, except that they gave President Akufo-Addo the benefit of the doubt that perhaps 4 years is not enough to do all the things that he says he will do. So let's give him another 4 years. When they did that and found that he had grossly underperformed, they booted the NPP out in the most ignominious fashion. 1.7 million votes is the single biggest margin of defeat for any political party, at least since 1992. In fact, President Rollins has the biggest percentage. He won by 58% in 1996, I believe. But in terms of raw numbers, President Mahama has had the highest. And it was primarily because of the underperformance of the NPP. That is how Ghanaians have always assessed governments. So nobody should delude themselves that bringing a particular candidate who has been on the ballot for 4 times would do the magic. Of course, it helps that you don't have to spend much on marketing him because you don't need to do too much advertisement because people know his face. But name and face recognition won't deliver results if the people think that you have failed. Now, on Paul's repetition of the hackneyed NPP excuse about COVID. COVID was a global pandemic. If you like, call it a global catastrophe. So because of that, the effects should be global. When you do the analysis, Ghana should be part of the average. But that was not the case after 2000. In fact, the reason why the economy took a downturn began to manifest from 2019. So you look at the figures carefully. A key indicator of economic performance, management, and prudence is the deficit. Right from 2019, the deficit began to rise. No, in fact, 2018, the deficit rose higher than what they inherited. It was at that time that we started cautioning them that no, you remember President Mahamet's admonition to Kanu Foyata that the economy was beginning to heat up. They rebuffed them and said that they knew what they were about. That was when Bawumia was touting the credentials of the NPP economic management team. By 2020, things had come to a head. So we had a global pandemic. And like any other human being, when you are hit with a crisis, you adjust. Economic principles are not thrown out of the window on account of a crisis. It's an exogenous shock. But you factor it in your planning. By July of 2020, we had got a hang of COVID. Ken Oforiatta went to Parliament to revise the figures that he had presented to Parliament in the budget that he presented the following year. It was because he knew that COVID was going to shift the goalpost a bit. So he went to Parliament and made specific commitments. By July, COVID hadn't worsened. In fact, the worst of COVID had passed. We had even done the lockdown, if I'm not mistaken. And the lockdown was at the height of COVID. So they knew that we had this pandemic, and therefore planning needed to factor in the effects of the pandemic. In addition to this, they received tens of billions of Ghana cedis in aid. The IMF gave us $1 billion back to back between 2021 and 2022. No government has benefited from that. The first tranche was $1 billion, which at the time should have been around 12 billion cedis. It was free money. We in the NDC have not received $1 billion in free money ever from the IMF. The AFDB, World Bank, they gave you hundreds of millions of dollars. When you put it together, in excess of 23 billion Ghana cedis came into this country because of COVID. If you were managing the economy prudently, you would use this in a manner that protected the public against the spread of the pandemic, but also ensured that your finances were stable. Countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, even Nigeria were able to do this. So at the end of the pandemic, when you assess their books, you found that they were within reasonable limits. But this party, the NPP, overspent precisely because there was an election. Again, I took part in elections in 2020. So I know the kind of campaign they waged. Moro, people would be sitting there because they were NPP fanatics. They will receive monies, sometimes 5,000 cedis, 10,000 cedis, under the guise of business support when they have not even sought it. We all heard the vice chairperson of the NPP, Felix, say that because of the pandemic, NPP government sent them monies. Parliamentary candidates received 100,000. She, as a regional executive of the Northern Region, received 70,000. If you dip your hands in the public purse and share monies like confetti at the height of the pandemic, how do you expect that your economy will be sustained? Ken Oforiatta went to Parliament in July and said that he had previously set a deficit target of 5% in the 2020 budget. But because of the pandemic, he was going to do about 10%. Molo, he did 15%. This created a catastrophic void in our economy. So everything they did after 2021 was try to seal this hole. And the more they tried, the deeper they sank. And then when it became obvious that things had gone haywire and they needed to seek intervention, they needed to go to the IMF, they were all over the place. Ken Oforiatta was insisting that he wouldn't go. Do you know how he went to the IMF? It was the governor of the Bank of Ghana who presented such a dire situation to Akufo-Addo that he didn't have a choice. He picked the phone and called the IMF managing director, that Ghana was finally going to accede to an IMF program. They should have gone to the IMF immediately after the 2020 elections. That would have given confidence to investors, who would then have had more patience with us and pulled their investment. Because they didn't do that and things were heading south, investors panicked. Moreover, the Bank of Ghana itself has published that in the space of 2 years, $6 billion left this country. When you do that, your currency will take a hit. That is how come our currency collapsed precipitously. So it was their bad economic decisions. The way they spent in 2020 as if there was no tomorrow, simply so that they carry favor with their party executives and the public. That is what led to the whole. It had nothing to do with COVID per se. COVID was a global phenomenon that nobody could dispute. And let me put it on record. I've seen Dr. Bamia, Paul has repeated this, NPP propagandists are running with it, that President Mahama has gone to the UN to capitulate on COVID. He hasn't done so. Indeed, the video they show is a video of President Mahama at Harvard sometime in 2022 or so, in which he acknowledged the effects of COVID on all economies around the globe. But the paragraph that came right after this statement highlighted inherent mismanagement in Ghana as the reason why our situation was so dire compared to our peers in West Africa. Look, Moro, when they did the analysis, there were countries in West Africa that had debt to GDP ratios around 40% to 50%. We had 104%. They borrowed and squandered it on consumption because they thought there was an election. So what made the difference between Ghana's recklessness and the prudence of our neighbors was the election. They overspent. So they must admit that and refrain from making, indeed, they even added the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. But the Russia-Ukrainian conflict is on. It's on. Indeed, it's more likely that the Gaza-Palestinian crisis will be resolved earlier than the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. And yet, within the period that we've been in power, you've seen how we've managed this economy. The difference is prudence. You hear them shout from the rooftops that, oh, government is not spending. And sometimes they turn themselves into spokespersons for contractors. President Mahama has put in place such rigorous measures. Today, if you go to the finance minister with a proposed contract for some procurement activity, he will demand that you seek commencement certification, which means that he has to examine the prudence of that expenditure, its necessity, and the impact it will have on the economy and overall development before he approves it. And this has been established by no less a person than President Mahama himself. So he is exercising stringent oversight on government expenditure. And I've told you that we spent in excess of 100 billion already out of the 230 billion budget that we made. But the money has gone to critical sectors. He speaks about education and touts free SHS. I saw Upon Kroma make a song and dance about free SHS. So you say that senior high school students cannot afford to pay 800 cedis and 1,500 cedis as fees. Because of that, you need to intervene across board and pay everybody's fees. True. But Paul also admits that because of poor planning, the system was overwhelmed. So that by the end of their tenure, the problems that had arisen had completely undermined the viability of that program. President Mahama comes in, and what does he do in the first 10 months? Before they left office, every day on your show, you showed gory pictures, harrowing pictures of students in senior high school eating food that, with the greatest of respect to everybody listening, even dogs in some homes today will not eat. Today, the situation is not like that, because over 1 billion cedis of money has been pumped into that. Schools, through the association, CHAS, has been involved in the procurement, such that critical inputs that are needed to prepare food for students are bought by the schools themselves. And then central government complements it with the more difficult to procure items. Proper management. That is what is happening. When you go to the tertiary level, those students who can pay 1,500, 800 cedis are then compelled to pay between 3,000 and 5,000. What have we done? 130,000 students, 130,000 students have had their fees paid for them at tertiary level. So when Upon Kroma sits in the studio and pretends, willfully displays willful blindness, and says that he doesn't see what we've done in 8 months, that right there is his answer. 130,000 students have had their fees paid. And I'm telling you that those fees are more, in some instances, they are 2 times higher than what you pay at senior high school level. In addition to this, all the arrears they left, school feeding, for about 6 terms, they were not paying caterers. Moro, for about 6 terms, they were not paying capitation grants. What is the use of having an educational system if you cannot finance it? 6 terms, they were not paying capitation grants. Okay. Not only has capitation grant been increased, we've actually been able to pay and are current in terms of payments. Do you hear of school feeding agitation lately? You don't. Why? Because the caterers have been paid, including those who they contracted and refused or failed to pay, most of whom were their women organizers.
Right.
Look at the energy sector. In the last 8 months alone, $1.3 billion has been spent by this government to procure fuel. So when you go home and your electricity is stable, that is how it is being managed.
Okay.
When they were leaving, they didn't leave a liter of fuel.
Okay.
For this government, how were they even expecting that their lives to be on? They adopted a Scotch tactic on that matter. Now let me come to the issue of the free, 24-hour economy that Oppong Nkrumah.
Oppong Nkrumah is not on this show, Minister.
No, but he has played his insect on multiple occasions. No. But it is something that.
But I'd like to congratulate you for something. You know, this free SHS thing you are talking about, and I'd like to also congratulate Ghanaians in that regard, because Ghanaians have become very matured, and our democracy is maturing. This is the NDC who did not believe in free SHS.
How so?
This is the NDC.
Stop right there. I'm on the floor. Stop right there.
Okay. But now, NDC is supporting free SHS, which is not their policy.
What you expose.
No, it's not your policy.
Listen.
Is it your policy?
No, listen to me. You see, we don't need to split hairs over obvious matters.
Yes, so that's our policy. That's NPP's policy.
Not a problem. Look,
and the policy that you are supporting.
In 2014,
yes.
The first steps in free SHS were taken by President Mahama. In fact, when they came to power, they claimed that we had left arrears in the implementation of free SHS, even if it was progressive. That is an admission that we started it. If we hadn't started it, how would the arrears have accrued? Number two
was settled in 2022.
It was not settled. It was
about
not,
who brought free SHS. You still believe NDC brought free SHS?
When you were speaking, I kept
out of please. But I'm interested in that.
No problem. I'm also very interested.
Okay.
Paul, I'm asking you a question.
Yes, please.
Napo, who you wanted to become vice president, who you campaigned actively for,
yes,
says that when he became education minister, the NDC had left arrears of about 30 million or so because of the implementation of free SHS. These were Napo's words, and Napo was education minister. You cannot be more credible in education matters than Napo, who was there.
I don't know why Napo would say that. Because the first time free SHS appeared in parliamentary hazard.
I beg you.
It's NPP.
I beg you.
Okay.
Paul,
yes,
you
please.
Cannot question Napo's locus.
When no, I've not heard it. I don't know what he said.
Of course, you won't hear it.
No problem.
It's not a problem. It's actually so I'm telling you, it's a fact. It's a fact that it can be tested.
But the free SHS.
But if you allow me to land, you see, it doesn't matter where free SHS appeared. It does not matter where free SHS appeared.
Yes.
I know for a fact that these students went to school for free under the NDC, in terms of their fees and other payments. So the Minister of Education, in their bid to get back at us, claimed, in fact, one of the criticisms they leveled against Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman when she was nominated as running mate. In fact, they gave their communicators speaking notes. At the top of that was that she had left arrears as education minister in the implementation of free SHS. So that puts paid to that debate. Number two, when you implemented free SHS, and we were drawing attention to the obvious flaws because of the poor planning, which is symptomatic of NPP policy making, their response was that we were opposed to free SHS. In fact, Paul has tweeted it this morning. And then, from around 2020 or so, it became their mantra that President Mahama will collapse free SHS. Today, he is commending President Mahama for continuing free SHS. Yes, so it tells you about the vacancy of NPP propaganda and how short-lived it often is. Today, no, he didn't say so. You said that President Mahama said he would review free SHS. And one of the reviews is how feeding is being managed. Everybody agrees that it's a much better management practice today in feeding than it was under you. Yet you said review highly educated people, some of whom had attended Yale University, Oxford, LSE, and what have you, say that review meant cancellation. Today, free SHS is alive and kicking. President Mahama has gone a step further to begin to introduce interventions in tertiary education so that the poor free SHS student from Abuenu in Adwa Sebu Kamankese or Abosubayade in Adwa Sebu Kamankese can have hope that when they get to tertiary level, they are not going to be left in the lurch. President Mahama has done that. The poor girl in Fomaye, in Adwa Sebu Kamankese, who stayed out of school because she could not buy sanitary towels, now has hope. Because 3 million sanitary towels have been procured, and she has benefited from same. So when you sit there and say that you've not seen what we've done in 6 months, you are only deluding yourself. As you've always done. Not you. I'm responding to general NPP claims, echoed by Oppong Nkrumah, who is a key figure for them in parliament. So that must be put to rest. The other issue that I want to tackle is this oft-repeated claim that we have not met the expectations of Ghanaians in 10 months. They raise oral, they raise Galamsey, what have you. And more, I hope that you give me some time to address this. Paul can come in when I'm done. You see, The issue is that we said because of the pervasive nature of corruption, and Moro, on this show, you and your colleagues highlighted multiple instances of corruption. And coming into government, some of the things I've seen, including only last week, are mind-boggling. You know, the Auditor General is doing an audit into all the arrears claims that were presented to this government when we left. And eventually when he is done and he puts the report out, you will marvel at the sheer rape of the public purse by the NPP. So something needed to be done. So President Mama says, look, we will implement a policy called Operation Recover All Loot. In other words, anybody who is deemed to have unlawfully touched public funds will be held to account. That was always going to be a lawful process, not an arbitrary extrajudicial process. It meant that, first of all, investigations have to be conducted. Once the investigations are conducted, a docket is built. In other words, the evidence is put together, then presented to a court to adjudicate. The person against whom these allegations are made is then given every opportunity under the law to defend themselves, after which the judge will make, or the court will make a determination about their guilt or otherwise. So we, the state, can believe that we have a strong case against Paul in the, what do you call it, the Christmas tree matter or the Frontiers matter. But Paul, by all means, must be given every opportunity to defend himself. That process takes a bit of time. So I can tell you for free, Moro, that since we came into power, over 80 former government officials have been invited by the security agencies, NIB, which used to be called BNI. These days, you don't know where the NIB came from. You confuse it with the bank, but they are called NIB.
I think they should just revert to BNI. NIB.
Well, I'm not too big on reversion, but anyway, that's another discussion for another day. The police CID, IOCO, FIC, and others have been actively involved. 80 people have been questioned. Some of them have been granted bail. It's not all the cases that are highlighted in the way that Paul's arrest by the OSP is highlighted. So you may not hear about it. Some of them are just about to be taken. Others have actually been taken to court. Look, this government has taken people to court earliest than any other in our history. As I speak, there are about 7 people who are standing trial. The Edubuayin case, the state is calling only 3 witnesses. 1 witness is done. They were actually doing cross-examination when the judicial vacation came on. There's nothing government can do about that because the judiciary is an independent arm. The Attorney General is prosecuting it. It is expected to be completed expeditiously. The SkyTrain case is on. Only this week, on Monday, I believe, Wontumi and 3 others have been put before court for their involvement in illegal mining in Galamsey. There are 20 others that are pending. The National Service case will go to court presently. There's a case we call Ramble in the Jungle, where the Attorney General may brief on sometime next week. Okay. That one too is due for court. But ultimately, due process must be used. The same people who in one breath claim that we are harassing them, the moment Paul is invited by the USP, they say it's harassment. If you invite Wontumi, they say it's harassment. Meanwhile, the same people are all over the place claiming that oral is not working. Oral was never meant to be an arbitrary process. It was always going to be done under the auspices of due process. That's precisely what we are doing. The Attorney General is being meticulous. When they put that docket together, it will be hard to punch holes in them when you go to court. You see, forget about what they say in the media. Forget about what they say in the media. But when you go to court, that is where the real deal is. So I can assure all viewers that President Mama is strictly monitoring the implementation of oral. And nobody who has taken anything that does not belong to him or which belongs to the state is going to go scot-free to the extent that evidence is established. The cases are many, so you have to go through it with a fine comb. So the commitment remains. It is eternal. And it does not extend only to political opponents. President Mama has made it clear that if you are a member of his government and you get into trouble as far as corruption is concerned, don't call him because he will not pick up if it relates to seeking his intervention in that matter. And all of us are aware of it. He's told us in no uncertain terms. So that must be placed on record. The other issue that I wish to tackle is Galamsey. You see,
before you go to Galamsey, we'll come to Galamsey. As a topic.
Okay, all right. If you have a follow-up.
We haven't done the petition, so
but
can I just respond to? No, that's my.
Let's do this.
But can I respond to this very quickly?
Respond to him when you're done. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll do Galamsey.
As a news reporter, I've been looking at this issue of NDC have not performed under oral and all of that, and I didn't quite take it seriously because I agree with some of the things that she said. It's a procedure, and it's a process you go through to achieve these things. So when a government comes to power, and looking at reporting on government, it's happened all the time. In the first NDC administration post-2000, the Mills 2009, there was a lot of issues on Betty Moldudri, so it eventually led to her shifting from Attorney General's department because I was concerned that prosecution is not going on. During Gloria Kufu's time in 2017, there was again the concern raised that because of the campaign we wage, and I'll deal with that campaigns, when we're talking about how communication alone cannot win an election. The campaigns we wage, we come in and then the people are demanding. So I was just looking at it as one of those things. But I was struck by the event of the NDC Lawyers Conference, where no less a person than the General Secretary of the party expressed his personal worry about the way oral was progressing. And he pointed fingers at internal corruption. That is when I looked at it, I said, then perhaps there's something to look at. Fifi Kwakye, the General Secretary of the NDC, told NDC lawyers that he is aware of NDC people who are cutting deals with those who are to be prosecuted. And that if they don't stop those cutting deals, which is hampering the process of achieving oral.
He said attempting to.
Yes. Then he will. They are attempting to cut deals. And he knows them. Yes. He says he knows them. And that process is hampering the oral realization of oral. And that if they don't stop, Fifi Kwakye, the General Secretary of the party, will call them out. So that gave me the first indication of perhaps what could be the actual reason why oral is being hampered. Very different from the political conversations that I had and NPP taking advantage. No, I'm not interested in that. I've seen that happen so many times. I don't think that the NDC is doing something wrong. But when the General Secretary spoke in that manner, then I felt that, wow, we do have a problem. But I don't know where that matter is now. Now, on the campaign... I'll come to you in a minute. Right. So, on the campaigns of the PR, the performance of government, which is really what goes to the polls, it's true. The other thing that we are noticing, which might make political tenure difficult for any government, is the extent to which opposition take advantage of certain things that they may clearly be aware that is not the doing of government as such. But because you are in government, they pin it on you. And then when they come to government, they create high expectations of how problems like that can be solved. And that then eventually affects the government. If we are not careful, we're going to be running four-year terms, because if that's how we're going to run our campaign, it's going to be very difficult for any four-year term to go to the polls and indicate among the 10 boxes that we had to tick, we have been able to take 3. We have not been able to take 7 because of this and that. If the opposition agrees that yes, you have ticked 3, the 7 you haven't taken, we think that 5 you can't, but 2 you can. But if the opposition runs amok on a topic like Galamsey and say that Galamsey is at the footstool of the government, Galamsey is a problem President Akufo-Addo can solve in 1 week. Galamsey is a problem where you need to declare a state of emergency. When they are aware that they are merely taking political advantage of a bad situation, they are aware of that. If we don't stop that, and every opposition can take advantage of government of every bad situation in Ghana, even when we are aware that this situation, dear, it is not government, but we want to take advantage of it, then we are going to have difficulties in running the show when we come to power. And that is why for the 10 months in government, if you look at the economic indicators, Felix is right. NDC's economic indicators look okay from January to now. If you look at prices, some prices may have gone up, but it's not significant. There is not significant doomsaw or very little or no doomsaw at all. So the NDC should really not have a difficulty now. The difficulty the NDC is having is a question of trust on the single subject of Galamsey. That's really the difficulty confronting the NDC. If the NDC had not run Galamsey amok as part of their campaign of 2024 and had recognized the efforts being made by the Akufo-Addo government and recognized that this Galamsey problem is not really a government problem, and people came on Good Morning Ghana and Sam George and others say that Galamsey can be solved in 1 week. It is President Akufo-Addo who is doing it. It is NPP people who are doing it. And the citizens agree. They hear them and they believe it. And then they vote them into power. That is when they are having this concern just in 10 months of office. And President Mahama now says state of emergency, which was said by some of his lieutenants as being the solution to the problem, the real proper solution to the problem. That state of emergency may not come. NPP apologists will tell you that President Mahama's efforts to fight Galamsey is merely rehashing everything Akufo-Addo did, which didn't work. So these are the points I want to make. I think he wanted to refer to something.
Again.
So Felix, I beg you. We need to take a break. We'll take a break. This is Good Morning Ghana on the Metro Television. Now, I've been told that management has granted us an extra 1 hour so that we can deal with the other issues. And so we're grateful to the management of the Ignite Media Group, Von Bakustein. Thank you very much for that. And so we'll take a short break, and when we return, we have a lot to talk about indeed, as Galamsey. There's also this issue, and I'm going to raise this issue because I know the relationship that Paul Adom has with the former Attorney General. They're very good friends, and so I'll be very interested in finding out from him what exactly is happening between Paul Adom, host of Good Evening Ghana, a seasoned journalist and former board chair of Ghana Airport Company Limited, and also the MP for Abra Asebu Kwakye, and also Minister in charge of Government Communications, and also the President's spokesperson, that's Felix Kwakye Ofusu. Felix, there was something you wanted to react to about
the bits about the free SHS and who's I think it's clear. Look, on the 11th August 2020, I believe.
Okay.
Then Education Minister, Honorable Matthew Opoku Prempeh at the time, he also was MP for Menchia South, if I'm not mistaken. He later became the running mate of the NPP flag bearer, Dr. Ahmadu Bawumia. He was in Parliament to answer questions relating to the implementation of free SHS. Among other things, he claimed that the NDC government had left a debt of 30.1 million Ghana cedis, and this one is on Ghana web. Anybody can Google it. On what he described as the high-sounding progressively free program in the 2016-2017 academic year. So if we hadn't implemented a free SHS program, on what basis did we leave the debt? As spoken to by the Education Minister. So that settles it. There's no dispute about it. Number two, the bit
So we
about
should settle the NDC started free SHS.
but that's what your own minister.
enough.
Your own minister has gone to Parliament to say that we left a debt. How can we leave a debt over something we didn't implement?
That's a question Ghanaians can answer. But
Yeah.
if that's your
No,
view,
no,
we
he
just
answered it. The minister himself answered it.
So the NDC started free SHS.
I'm saying your minister, the one that you found credible enough to make your running mate, you wanted to become vice president. He's gone to Parliament, and it is in a parliamentary answer. This is
But he sent me a text.
but he
If
cannot
I can
deny.
read it.
But he cannot deny his own.
No,
withstanding-
Napo has just sent me a text.
Okay,
so
go
I
ahead.
want
Read
to
it,
tell you,
read
this
it,
is
read
the
it.
text I sent
Read it,
to
read it,
him.
read it, read
I
it.
said, sorry, I'm sure you may not be awake because I think he's abroad. I'm on Good Morning Ghana, and Felix says that you said or admitted that NDC started free SHS and that they left a bill. This is what a text I sent to him at 9:14. 9:23 comes back. He says, false. Never said that anywhere. When they were running adverts, was it to support free SHS or to say that we couldn't have the money to do free SHS? He's referring to 2016's political adverts when NDC ran adverts to say that free SHS is not possible. Okay, there were adverts like that.
Right.
Then he continues and says, when President Mahama was saying, quote, free SHS was a whimsical promise of a desperate politician, was he referring to himself as the starter of the program?
Not a problem.
This is what Napo
no
sends
problem.
me.
But
And
Napo-
it is very
and I'm sure
President
Napo-
Mahama did say
No.
that free SHS is a whimsical promise of a desperate
You
politician.
let us put aside the criticism of free SHS for now.
Yeah.
And as for the criticism, it is valid because over the course of 8 years, you proved us right. But the point is this: Napo was in Parliament 11th August 2020.
It's in the Hansard.
It's in the Hansard.
He called it free SHS.
He said high-sounding, progressively free senior high school for 2016-2017 academic
Was that
year.
how the NDC called it?
Oh no!
Progressively free something.
Oh. Yeah, that's what we called it. That
Okay.
is what we called it.
And it was limited to day schools.
Yes, Napo said we left a bill of 30.1 million Ghana cedis. In fact, this is something that NPP propagandists repeated when Professor Opoku was elected. As recently as 2024, when she was nominated as President Mahama's running mate, they repeated it again. It was part of their speaking law that they should say that among other things, she failed because he left a debt of 30.1 million as education minister for the implementation of progressive free high school.
Okay, fair enough. Look,
So it's something.
I think he's responded.
Hold on. See, this is where I see the problem coming from. Whereas the NDC deems what was launched in 2014
As
as
progressively
free
free
SHS,
That is what it is.
the NPP does not want
You see,
to
it doesn't
acknowledge
matter what
that.
they deem it.
No,
I'm
I'm not saying what my issue is not whether what the NPP is saying is true or not. I'm telling you, I'm saying this is the basis for the clash.
Of the confusion.
You see, there's
And
no
the
clash.
confusion.
You see, you can
But
have a
there's
clash.
no- there's no
the-
confusion.
The NPP till today
There's no
is
confusion.
refusing to accept that the 2014 what was launched in 2014 is
you
But
can
the
say-
NPP launched a campaign
I
in
beg your
2016 for
pardon.
free
I beg your
SHS,
pardon.
and they were told
I
that
beg
it's
your
not
pardon. I beg
possible.
your pardon. No, in fact, they did this in 2012. Ghanaians agreed, they voted against you.
Yes.
Yes, so no
2012,
problem. No
free
problem.
SHS was
No problem.
In 2012, free
But
SHS was
you
big
know,
on the
You
agenda.
can say what you want outside Parliament. When you go to Parliament, because it is a House of Records, and that you stand the risk of being held for perjury, you are obliged compelled to tell the truth.
Yes.
The truth is that the education minister went to parliament to say we started progressively free senior high school and we left a debt of 30.1 million.
Fact, but
So there's nothing
But
to
the
be
truth
seen.
is also the NDC ran
But there's
campaigns to
nothing
say
to
that
which
No.
was
free
rolled
SHS
out.
is not
No.
possible.
That which was rolled out.
Yes.
Which occasioned the debt.
Yes.
I'm saying to you that the NPP is refusing to accept that as free
You see,
SHS.
they cannot choose.
Yes. That's the basis for the
They
confusion.
cannot
But how
choose
is that
a
free
pick.
SHS?
But
It's
if you
limited, so
allow me,
limited.
if you allow me, when you did your free SHS, you didn't do it for everybody in SHS. You started
That's
with
also
first year
a fact.
students.
That's also a
Isn't
fact.
also, so that was
That's
also
also a
progressive,
fact,
isn't
yes.
also?
It was first year,
That's
second
all.
and third
So
year.
there's no
It was
argument
progressive,
actually.
yes.
So you cannot
Across the country.
Yeah, no. There were 3 strands of students in school
Yes.
at the time. There were first year students who were just entering.
Yeah.
There were second year students, and then there were third year students. When you started with first year students. That's what you did in 2017. The September that you talk about, that's what you did.
But that's what we publicly announced to do.
But we also publicly announced that we are starting with day students and absorbing some of the cost for boarding students.
I wanted to also.
But I'm not that. Again,
So
this-
I think what can be established that in both cases there was some progression.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's
You
not
see,
a decision for
absolutely.
me.
You see,
I may be wrong.
I have only put
And he
this-
may be wrong.
I have
But the
only-
Ghanaian people know who brought
if
free
you allow me,
SHS.
the interruptions are becoming a bit too much. If you allow me, the fact is that it is on record that even those who belatedly are raising this point have admitted in official parliamentary records that there was a policy, a program being implemented by the government called Progressively Free Senior High School, which President Mama publicly announced in his 2015 State of the Nation address. And that the implementation of that had left a debt of 30.1 million Ghana cedis, which tab the government had succeeded as needed to pick. That's all. But let me come back to oral.
Okay.
Paul raised the issue of what Fifi Kwakye has said. Fifi Kwakye, as a party executive, reserves the right to criticize what he believes to be happenings that he disagrees with in government. But you see, when the president met the media at the Jubilee House, in fact, Fifi Kwakye was sitting very close to me. The president made it clear that the buck stops with him. He, as president, has told the Attorney General that no amount of interference will dissuade government from pursuing oral. That influential members of society walk up to the Attorney General or any other person they may deem have some influence in the prosecution of people to seek to intervene on their behalf or plead for some clemency. There's no reason why oral will not be implemented. So that in itself does not prevent government from doing what has to be done. If the man who Ghanaians are giving the mandate to ensure that oral is undertaken says that he's not going to do it, then you have a problem. Or if the objective facts on the ground is that people are not being investigated, charges are not preferred, and people are not being taken to court, then you could say so. But that is not the case. So we need to listen to what the president has said. He made it clear that he has given the Attorney General the all go, the all clear, the green light to do whatever it takes to implement it. And I can, from where I sit at the vantage point, so I can tell you that I am in touch on a daily basis with the Attorney General and his staff. It is going on live, and nobody has been able to intervene on anybody's behalf since we came to power. So that must be placed on. Now let's talk about Galamsey. You see, there has been an effort. You see, the issue of Galamsey is an exceptionally serious one. Seeing our water bodies turn murky and have heavy metals in them, such that even treatment plants are unable to treat water for our consumption. It's an extremely disturbing issue.
Okay.
Which is at the heart of government's response to this problem. But you see, we must separate genuine sentiments from civil society, religious groupings, the general public, from the feigned outrage of the NPP. Because they have never cared a hoot about the effects of Galamsey on the people of Ghana. They have not. Right from President Akufo-Addo to the lowest person in the NPP. What they have sought to do, and Paul admitted to it, is to piggyback on genuine sentiments of members of the general public to seek belated vindication for their failed fight against Galamsey. Indeed, there was no fight against Galamsey under President Akufo-Addo. The reason is this. Galamsey had existed for many years before Akufo-Addo became president. But by every account, it intensified under him. And the sole reason for that was governmental complicity. Moro, the people whom we had entrusted resources to and given the mandate to address problems, including Galamsey, had turned themselves into a criminal cabal and were profiting from Galamsey. That is the only reason why President Akufo-Addo could not eliminate Galamsey.
And what has happened to those people?
So I'm coming. They go about, they make the most pathetic excuse that, the Frimpong Boateng report, for instance, which cited ministers, presidential staffers, MPs, and party executives as being part of the criminal cabal profiting from Galamsey, also said that NDC members were involved. So that is vindication. You see, that provides further proof of the utter uselessness of the government then in the fight against Galamsey. Because, Moro, there's nothing that an NDC person can do or say whilst in opposition that should prevent a government from doing what has to be done. Let me give you one or two examples. Gwafedami is Paul's friend. At a point when Gwafedami was Deputy Attorney General, they took Dr. Opuni to court. One of the things they leveled against him was that he had taken 25,000 cedis from Agongo as a bribe to give him some contract. And you know Dr. Opuni very well. A top class orthopedic surgeon who long before he came to power would have viewed 25,000 cedis as chicken change. Yet they were able to take something as paltry as that to court to charge him. Our national chairman, Honorable Samuel Ovoswampofo, in the wake of the Iowa West Ogun violence, convened a meeting to discuss the party's response. Somebody took a recording to the Attorney General. They charged him for attending a meeting and discussing possible responses to violence that the government of the day had sponsored against NDC people. So if mere words at an NDC meeting could occasion prosecution, why should we not dismiss the claim that Professor Frimpong Boateng said there were NDC people involved in Galamsey, so they couldn't do anything? The reason why they couldn't act is that they had abused the mandate and resources of the people of Ghana to acquire illicit wealth through Galamsey. People in government, top-level executives. Look, Professor Frimpong Boateng again is on record. He is captured on tape saying that Galamsey was a key source of financing for the NPP. And we all were involved in the campaign of 2020. And we saw how lavish that campaign was on the part of the NPP. And we knew that those resources could not have come from traditional sources of funding for campaigns. And that something was clearly amiss. Professor Frimpong Boateng provided that missing piece of the puzzle and said that it was from Galamsey. So if you had a situation where the government was complicit, there was never going to be an active effort to rid this country of Galamsey. President Akufo-Addo was immobilized because he knew that that was how his party was financing itself. The situation is not the same. And you see, Moro, in order to carry out an objective analysis of the situation, and I've already expressed government's absolute concern about the situation, you need to look at the situation as we came to meet it and compare to what we inherited, compare to what exists now, to be able to say whether there has been an improvement in the fight or there has been a relapse. So that the NPP's feigned outrage is isolated for what it is. When we came to power, you see, Galamsey takes place in 4 places. There are pristine forest reserves. There are river bodies. Then there are normal communities that do not fall within any of these 2 catchment areas. And then there are roadsides. When we came into power, out of 288 forest reserves, which have been codified and should be under the protection of the state, 44 had been impacted by Galamsey. Out of these 44, there were 9 that the government of Ghana could not possess, could not enter because armed bandits, many of whom had been recruited by elements within the Akufo-Addo government and the NPP party, were protecting Galamseyers. The Forestry Commission were basically toothless. They couldn't do anything about it. So a part of Ghanaian territory had been taken over by bandits engaged in Galamsey. That was what we came to meet. As I speak to you, Moro, all those 9 had been repossessed by the state. In fact, when we repossessed it and the troops that carried out the action left, some bandits attempted to go back. Within a day or 2, Colonel Boa and his men had rounded them up. As I speak to you, they are in police custody, awaiting prosecution. So if you had a situation where 9 forest reserves were under the custody of armed bandits, and today they are in the full possession of the government, that is clearly progress. Is that not so? So when we say there has been progress, we are pointing to empirical evidence. The second point is that when we came, there appeared to be no coordinated effort to deal with Galamsey, because the people who were charged with that responsibility had a vested interest in the trade and were profiting from it. So what did we do? Immediately we set about putting in place systems to ensure that we fight it in a coordinated effort. So there came NIMOS, led by Colonel Boa, who has under his command hundreds of troops drawn from the military, drawn from the police service and other security. They even have an intelligence wing that goes ahead of them and carries out reconnaissance of the various places where Galamsey is taking place and inputs the information back into the operational strategies of NIMOS. So before long, we took over the 9 forest reserves that the NPP had ceded to environmental terrorists. Then we began a sustained campaign to raid the other places within the 44 areas where Galamsey had been impacted and the riverine areas from the activities of Galamseyers. So what did we do? For over 2 to 3 years, all the NPP could manage were 800 arrests and 35 prosecutions. In the last 9 months alone, 1,400 people engaged in Galamsey have been rounded up. And I'm sure that in the last few weeks, even this number has gone up because this is as of last month. Only in the last few days, they've rounded up hundreds more. The Attorney General, at the encounter that the President held with CSOs on the matter of Galamsey, indicated, and in fact, I was in Cabinet on Tuesday, he laid a document which is going to allow for the creation of tribunals where these Galamseyers will be prosecuted expeditiously. Because after arresting them, you need to prosecute them in order for them for it to serve as a deterrent. Moro, you were here when Professor Pimpon told us that excavators that had been seized under the NPP had been stolen and shared amongst party chieftains. That is no longer the case. As I speak to you, there are in excess of 500 excavators under full military police protection that nobody can have access to. They have been seized. Some of them actually have been immobilized and destroyed. They are beyond repairs. You can't do anything with it. There's a certain contraption called a chamfang. They join multiple parts of other machines together and they put it on a riverbed, stir the riverbed, and that is what generates the turbidity and the pollution that we see in the river bodies. Over 1,000 of those chamfangs have been seized. And in fact, as for the chamfangs, they don't even seize them, possess them and keep them somewhere. They destroy it instantly because you can't even use it for anything beyond Galamsey. They destroy them. Similar numbers of water pumps have been retrieved. I have seen cache of arms that Kenelboy and his men have seized from the armed bandits who ran riots under the NPP and held sway and took over portions of Ghanaian territory in forest reserves that they have seized. In addition to this, we noticed that within a certain period when we came to power, because there was no proper regulation and control over excavator imports, every day we were witnessing the imports of over 200 excavators. So at a point, there were close to 2,000 excavators that had been imported. So we said, no, we need to put caps on, because in any event, yes, an excavator by itself is an earth-moving equipment, it's a construction equipment. So legitimate companies involved in legitimate construction and mining operations can't buy these excavators. But the numbers point to a certain difficulty or problem. When we looked into it, we saw that no, there needed to be tighter regulation. We needed to make it more difficult for people to bring in excavators for purposes other than construction or legitimate mining. So what did we do? We put in place a cap that if you import an excavator, you must bring documentation and evidence pointing to its use for only legitimate purposes. Anything other than that, the state won't have it. So we confiscated 1,600 excavators. It congested the port. So in the dead of night, we moved them to military bases. And then some rambunctious media practitioners quickly put out information that they were being cleared illicitly under the cover of darkness. And I can volunteer to take you to Michelle Camp, Esutare, even Bema Camp, just around here, where you see the excavators parked there under full armed guard. So nobody can go there to clear those excavators. That has been done. And indeed, every excavator that is cleared is tracked. They install a device that you cannot remove without drawing attention, such that it limits you to using the excavator in the area you say you will use it. When President Mama said we will use AI in the fight against Ghana, I've seen some NPP propagandists attempt to make mockery of that. Through AI, we've done what we call geofencing. So when you take it to, you say Paul says he has bought an excavator and he's coming to use it within the premises of Metro TV for some construction activity. Because of the geofencing and the deployment of technology, including AI, to monitor its movement, if you move it outside of the zone that you said you were going to operate it within, it will be immobilized from a control center in Accra. So it cannot, the moment it crosses the line, it triggers an alarm, which instantly immobilizes it. So that is one of the ways that we are limiting the use of excavators for purposes other than Galamsey. In addition to this, we are doing legislative reform. There was a lot of hue and cry over LI 2462. Again, that calls into question the NPP sincerity when they come to the table these days to purport to be angry. And I've seen propagandists of the NPP go around river bodies and show videos purporting to be upset about Galamsey, when they were the principal practitioners of Galamsey in this country only a few months ago. One of the things that happened was that government there were regulations that governed how mining was supposed to be done in forest reserves or anywhere else. President Kwakye comes to power, they take an LI to Parliament, which gives the president the power to authorize the granting of leases to mining companies in forest reserves. This, I'm sure, was well intentioned, so that in limited instances where it is absolutely necessary to do lawful mining in forest reserves, it can be done. But before long, he abused it to curry favor with party cronies. And then, before long, the Akonta matter came up. What did President Akufo do? He publicly defended Akonta mine.
I'll have to cut you. I'm sorry about it. Says that we, the supporters of the NDC, have a serious concern regarding Galamsey. From day one, we have known that many of those involved in Galamsey have strong backing from the NPP and its campaign figures. We, the NDC supporters, are worried that the real kingpins have not been arrested. They should be named and shamed. As for Wontumi, he's just a small example. There are many bigger NPP sponsors, supporters, and members, and who are deeply involved. We want them to be arrested and prosecuted so that we can see real action being taken. Until that happens, citizens will continue to feel that nothing is being done. Carlos from Ododo. Alfred Kojo Tradels, very good friend of mine. He says that, good morning, Moro. Please tell Honorable Felix of Kwakye that as for Good Evening Ghana, the least said about it, the better. In fact, I would prefer listening to Oman FM than wasting my precious time watching Good Evening Ghana. Moro, I was struggling to understand Paul, but please tell him that if he thinks NPP perform better, he should advise Honorable Ken Ofuriatta, the former finance minister, to come and account to Ghanaians. There's quite a number of other messages. And the Bosumi MP and that's for I've also sent your message. We'll deal with that shortly. I think you want to have a go at this. Is there something before you begin?
You see, it encapsulates the attitude of the Akufo-Addo administration and the NPP government to dealing with wrongdoing. And it's not just in the case of the Akonta Mining CID report. We saw it in the case of the Australia visa scandal. There was supposed to be a CID report that was never made public. And yet the president purported to have cleared Payo Sajide without telling us who actually engaged in that visa racketeering. Because we do know for a fact that visa racketeering occurred. President Akufo was not willing to punish anybody for anything that they did under his government. So you pass an LI, abuse it, award mining leases to party cronies. They engage in illegal mining. The CID investigates. And then you come on national television and say that the person who has been fingered in that CID report is innocent and do nothing. We came into power.
The CID report that we are looking for.
Absolutely. The Attorney General has based charges.
The current Attorney General.
Absolutely.
But you said Akufo ignored the CID report. But when was it presented to him?
But why? No, the report doesn't have to be presented to the CID.
To the president.
It goes to the Attorney General.
But the Attorney General,
no.
Adom says he hasn't seen it.
Of course, but he would deny it, wouldn't he?
Oh, so you think he's denying it?
But why? Why would he deny it? Otherwise, what other explanation exists?
So you are sure that Adom received the CID report?
I'm saying that what other... First of all, when the government of the day commissioned investigations into... Did Akufo-Addo not tell us that matter was being investigated? He told us. And then he came back to say that the investigations have found that he did nothing wrong. Is that not so? But I'm telling you that the CID had a report that the government was aware of, that they failed to act on.
And the former Attorney General was aware of it.
He knew it.
He says he's not aware of it.
If he didn't know it, then he didn't deserve to be in his position. Because why? How did this Attorney General know about the existence of a report?
Can you share that report? Is it possible?
It is not a problem. The point is that the Attorney
General... And the date on which it was done.
Paul, the Attorney General of the day cannot claim that he didn't know that a report like that existed. So, in fact, what they're actually saying is then that they didn't even investigate the claims against Amitama, which is even worse.
No, maybe you should call the Attorney General and ask him that. The government minister says you were aware of a report. He says I'm not aware of a report.
What you are saying has grave implications for the competence of the
Attorney General.
And even
but he's telling me directly.
No, so what you are saying is that as Attorney General, as President, there were such grave allegations of environmental terrorism against a party chairman whom you had given a lease to operate in a forest reserve, and you didn't investigate it.
No, you are saying two things. You see,
I'm not saying
you are
two
a government
things.
minister.
I'm
You are
telling
saying
you
that there is a CID report.
I'm telling you for a fact that there is a CID report
which was given to the former Attorney General
2022
and handed over to the Akufo-Addo administration.
Given to government, which they didn't act on.
Yeah, but no, please let's be clear on that.
So,
Given to Attorney General, government, Jubilee House,
yes,
who got the report and did not act on it.
I'm saying that the government of the day, the Attorney General, cannot claim that he doesn't know about it.
He's claiming precisely so.
The implication of what you are saying is that he was not fit for his office. And that indeed,
but you have to provide evidence that he got it.
By inaction, he was complicit in Galamsey. By inaction.
Oh, but that's unfair. That's really unfair.
I'm saying
that's really unfair.
No. Listen to my words carefully.
The Attorney General says he hasn't received any CID report.
Listen to my words carefully. I'm saying by inaction. I'm not saying that he's involved in Galamsey.
Why is the inaction?
The inaction is that there's an allegation. What he's saying means that he was not concerned. Okay? He was not concerned that a known figure in Ghanaian society, you even forget about the fact that he was NPP, a known figure in Ghanaian society, who had received a mining lease on the say-so of the president, had gone into the forest area, which is a protected zone, and carried out unlawful mining activity, which was deleterious to the environment. And he couldn't be bothered.
How couldn't he be bothered?
By what he's saying,
he couldn't be bothered?
If he was bothered, first of all, he has the power as Attorney General. Why? Dr. Yini. We woke
Are
up
you
one,
talking about a dereliction of duty or a report that came to him?
It is. He is claiming dereliction of duty. But I'm
no,
saying,
I said he didn't receive reports.
But by saying so, he is claiming dereliction of. It was his duty to look into that matter. The same way Dr. Yini, when reports emerged that two NDC executives were involved in Galamsey, we woke up one morning, we heard him clearly direct Yoko to look into. As I speak to you, Yoko is looking into the matter.
But that's what the civil society was asking President Mahama.
No,
wasn't mentioned.
Paul, if you let me land.
I thought you had landed.
If you let me land. I'm not landing. Moro, the point I'm making is that there's a CID report that the government was aware of. They didn't act. They concealed it. And there's
but you don't have evidence of that. I'm sorry, Minister. You really can't say that.
No.
You have to provide evidence to the press.
Paul, what you are canvassing is even worse than what I'm saying. What you are saying, that President Akufo-Addo.
No, you are making a value statement that something happened.
I am.
And you are not able to defend it that it happened.
When the police CID work, they work up to the Attorney General.
Yes,
in fact, until recently, I didn't know that when it comes to investigations, it is actually the Attorney General who has jurisdiction over CID, not the Interior Minister. Godfrey Dami cannot claim that he was not aware of it. What he is saying,
he's claiming so that he's not aware of it.
Then I'm
asking Metro TV to perhaps contact the Attorney General and tell him that the government minister says he's aware of the report.
That is why I'm saying that by implication, through inaction, that he was complicit in Galamsey. I'm not saying that he was involved in Galamsey.
This is shifting the goalposts. I'm not, but I'm telling you that it also speaks to the lack of seriousness on the part of your government. The same party. But that's shifting the goalposts.
I'm not shifting the goalposts.
You said there's a report they ignored.
There is.
If they said they didn't see it, then they were complicit.
The charges.
Why are you picking and choosing?
Listen. I'm not picking and choosing.
It's clearly shifting the goalposts.
It is just that you are intentionally refusing to let me make my point.
Please make your point.
Because you know that I'm making the point.
Please make the point.
There are two things. You are president. A controversy ensues. Indeed, this is a controversy that the president publicly spoke to. He told us that the matter was being looked into. Who was looking into the matter? It's police CID.
Your point is, so Felix, your point is that
it's not only police CID who is looking into the matter. When the president says a matter is being looked at, it could be Yoko. It could be police CID.
Who looked into the matter?
It could be the committee from the Attorney General's Office.
Who looked into the matter?
I don't know. You say that there's the CID report.
So you're saying that it is not possible for the CID to have looked into this matter without the Attorney General's department.
How is that possible?
Not knowing anything about it.
No, when the president
says,
yes,
that's what he's trying to say. The Attorney General says that nothing of the sort came to his desk.
So
he must show it.
How do you explain it?
Explain what?
Especially when Moro, if you let me land, I'm on the floor.
How do you know CID was working on something?
Moro,
I'm not saying
Moro, I'm the one on the floor.
No, how do you know that CID was working on it?
Based on what he's saying. No, based on what he's saying.
It could have been Yoko. It could have been CID. There are many investigative authorities.
No, he mentioned CID.
He's not providing the evidence for that. He's not able to.
I'm taking it based on what he said.
What he said is not able to provide evidence. When you ask him to shift the goalpost to dereliction of duty, he talks about a report that is available. That tells us there's no report. There's okay. If you don't have a report, there's dereliction of duty.
The reason why,
and that you're complicit in Galamsey.
True inaction. You see, again, if you let me land, just hold your horses and let me land. Two issues have emerged.
Yes.
When the Akunta mining incident occurred, Moro, Paul, you know for a fact that President Akufo-Addo publicly spoke to it. He was the one who told us that the matter is being looked into, right?
Yes.
You are saying that you don't know which specific agency. So
he didn't say. The president didn't say.
So who was looking into it then?
It could have been Yoko.
I'm telling you that
you can now tell us. Yes, so you are now confirming.
No. Listen.
That is the CID.
It is the CID that looked into it.
Fair enough. And you said the report went to the Attorney General. The Attorney General says there's no such report.
Number two, when the CID finished, that report exists. The government didn't act. And it is not the first time. Professor Frimpong Boateng's report. Don't you know that it was concealed for several years after he had presented him to President Akufo-Addo?
Who said that?
Professor Boateng himself said it.
He himself said it?
He himself said it. Indeed.
Okay. So you believe Frimpong Boateng?
Oh, but why
Charles
do you
Bissiou, the secretary, says Frimpong Boateng's statement is not correct. Charles Bissiou, this week, he's the secretary to the committee. He says Frimpong Boateng's report is not correct.
Why should we take the secretary's word and leave the word of the chairperson, the person that the president himself
Charles says he did the report.
But Moro, why are you interrupting?
This is Moro.
Professor Boateng, he was the environment minister. President Akufo-Addo charged him directly to oversee the fight against Galamsey. The man compiles a report, presents it to the president, in which he names names. This report was concealed from you and I. It was not government that put it out. It was the media that leaked that report.
What's the consequence? Where's the CID report?
The consequence is that you have a history of concealing reports that indict your people. And I'm telling you that the CID, as far back as 2022, had this report. When the president said it was being looked into, it was the CID that was looking into it.
Okay, let's see what happens with the Joseph Yamin report.
It doesn't matter.
And then we can. It matters.
No,
because it's the same vein. And the civil society were concerned that at your press meeting, at your meeting with civil society, Galamsey was concerned. He called the elephant in the room. He said, you, Felix, and the president have ignored the elephant in the room, which is Yamin. That's what he said.
The elephant in the room was Akufo-Addo and the NPP.
Akufo and NPP are out of power.
But if you let me land, Paul, when you were speaking, I kept quiet for you. I disagree with your points.
Fair enough.
The elephant in the room
is Yamin.
Was that Akufo-Addo and his party, the NPP, found Galamsey as a source of funding. So they were complicit and were not prepared to fight it. It is the reason why they were concealing every important report from the people of Ghana.
I think that's an interesting point.
It's an interesting point. Number two.
I thought I was going to say something.
Unlike you, President Mahama, nobody came to compel him to commission an investigation into Yamin and Abanga. You woke up one day and the Attorney General had instructed Yoku that based on the reports that he had received about the alleged involvement of these gentlemen in Galamsey, it should be looked into. In fact, he disclosed only last week that not only is Yoko acting on the reports that had initially been received, and that once they started, several other stakeholders had slapped in what they say is further evidence of the involvement of these gentlemen in Galamsey. And so the investigation has actually been brought in. When it is completed, he will present the report to President Mahama. And I can assure you that if such a report ever gets to President Mahama, it will not be concealed in the manner that President Akufo-Addo did. So when I speak about feigned outreach, and the reason why the NPP needs to be dismissed when they purport to be concerned about Galamsey, these are the actions that we have factored into the analysis. They were never concerned. Listen, they were never concerned about Galamsey. For them, it was a means of enrichment. And I'm on record to have said, I said it on Newsfire, they play it again today, that there were greedy, money-loving men in that party who saw Galamsey as a source of quick wealth. And therefore, there was no commitment on the part of the president, his government, and the party. That has changed. I told you only a while ago, that's what President Mahama, he won't even allow an appointee of his to be involved in lawful mining, let alone illegal mining.
Have licenses been issued this year?
There are licenses that you issued last year.
Yes, have there been licenses issued this year?
Listen. What licenses did President Akufo-Addo, President Mahama speak about? He spoke about licenses into forest reserves. When we came to power, sometime in 2024, you had issued a lease to a company to mine in a forest reserve. Once you issue the lease, there are consequential actions, such as an entry permit, which the Minerals Commission and the Forest Commission are obliged to give to the company that you had lawfully committed us to. Because if you don't do that, it's breach of contract. So there's no wrongdoing.
By so licenses have been issued this year by the John Mahama government.
Of course, but again, listen. Licenses are issued to lawful mining companies, not Galamsey. Galamsey don't require licenses.
So why is the Galamsey increasing?
Galamsey has not increased. I have given you empirical evidence. You are shooting off the hip.
The Chief Justice was wrong, right?
I beg you, please, again, let me land. You see, the Chief Justice, the Cali Bishops Conference, civil society, they are all concerned about Galamsey. If there are a flurry of reports of river bodies turning murky, they reserve the right to express their concern. They may believe in the instant circumstance that there is an increase. But I have given you empirical evidence of the global picture of Galamsey as we inherited it and the gains made so far. So what any objective analyst does is to compare the facts as they exist now against what existed under the NPP and draw a conclusion. The conclusion is that there have been incremental gains, but it is not sufficient to overcome.
So the problem has not increased.
It has not increased.
The stability of the water has definitely increased.
You don't measure the incidence of Galamsey by just the stability of water. Because Galamsey doesn't take place only in riverine areas. It takes place in forest reserves.
So what do we do with the stability of the water going up? What do we do with that fact?
Relax, Paul. What is going to happen? And indeed, when the gentleman from the Water Resources Commission appeared last Friday on the CSO platform of the president, he gave you evidence that in areas where NIMOS has intensified operations and is rounding up Galamseyers and disrupting the activity, there is clear improvement in the stability levels, which then suggests that if they intensify it and reach every corner of this country where Galamsey is taking place, it is only a matter of time before the stability levels increase. But that is only one place where Galamsey is taking place. No, listen. It is better than it was under you.
Okay.
But it is not at the level where we can be satisfied with. Right. No way.
Okay.
But I'm saying that you must also factor in the gains made in forest reserve, because that's also another area.
Okay.
There, under your government, Paul, bandits, terrorists held sway. The government of Ghana was shut out of its own territory. Okay. Now we have repossessed those, and they cannot go back. That is clear, measurable improvement.
Let me read this message. It's a very, very important message, and let me bring it. I'm sure that it would help with the analysis of this conversation on Galamsey. So Kwame Sapon of the CDD, he's big on health. He's a health practitioner. He says, I'm one of the petitioners in the wound to me and Akonta mining matter from 2022. I can confirm that as far back as mid-2023, we, the petitioners, knew there was a CID report. As a result, we sent a number of reminders to the police CID. Now, if the former Attorney General is saying he wasn't aware after the report has now surfaced, that is a serious indictment. That's what Kwame Sapon said.
Yeah, but can the report be published by government?
He's so surprised that he said he was aware.
No, when people occupy government positions, and we just believe that they will demonize them, it's very unfair. Okay. There's a person who was the principal legal advisor to the government, and if there was a CID report and he saw it, and he says today that, please let me finish.
This is a man who was prepared to take people sitting at an NDC office discussing a response to Ayo Asuwe's Wogon to court. This was a man who was part of the team. I'm coming. This was a man who was part of the team that took Opuni to court. And one of the things against Opuni was that he had taken 25,000 cedis from her. Well, you know Opuni very well that 25,000 cedis is chicken change. Yeah. They took him to court over this. You are telling me that if they were really...
You are questioning the integrity of the Attorney General.
Of course. Why not? Listen. Why not? Listen. Right. If indeed he meant business about dealing with Galamsey as a principal law enforcement officer of Ghana, as Dr. Ayini is now, and he has heard about multiple reports of Wuntumi's alleged involvement in Galamsey through Akonta mining in the forest reserves, and the president has publicly declared that there was an investigation, how can he now come and claim that he's unaware of this investigation? Okay. He's not.
PENDREAM TV now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.